And also, I'm going a little bit off piste, so do stay with me, because the work we're doing is an EPSC project, and it's looking across infrastructure. It's not just focused on energy, so we are looking at water and, in some circumstances, transport as well. And also, we're looking at business models, innovation in business models rather than innovation in technology. But again, it's related to technology and, again, the lessons. Why are we looking at something different to the way we're operating infrastructure at the moment? Well, at the moment it seems to be that infrastructure is aiming to deliver people's demands unquestionably, and we can't keep doing that sustainably, affordably and securely. So we need to do something different. And when we start thinking about demand management as a sort of a starter for the transition, the end user suddenly becomes a lot more important, because they're the ones that make decisions about what technologies they use to use infrastructure, and also how they use them. So they become central to it. And that gives us new possibilities when it comes to infrastructure, because what the end user needs is not the energy or the water. They need the service that the infrastructure provides. They need thermal comfort or cleanliness. They don't need gas or water. And what that gives us is a bigger space within which to optimise the resources, so we can start finding different ways to deliver what the end user actually needs with far less resource, and actually sort of double up our demand reduction system. So we're looking at a different way of operating infrastructure. So effectively, we're trying to look at how we move from a throughput-based system where companies make profit from selling more product, so they like to sell more product to make more profit, to one which we're sort of roughly characterising as a multi-utility service company, where what the company provides is the service, and they still generate revenue from that service. So we're not saying sell less product, make less money, they still generate revenue. So we're playing some more of the how do we make money out of demand management situation. But the big challenge with this is this big shift from a throughput-based system to more of a service-based system. And that's not going to happen spontaneously. So the work that I'm doing is looking at how the governance system might need to change to encourage more approaches like this and let us to move away from an operational system based like this. So what we did is we started off by looking at a series of case studies. You recognise a few on here, Jan. Of basically people that did things differently. So it was, and what we did is we specifically looked at case studies that had been initiated by a range of different actors, because the key with these different ways of doing things is the majority of things happen outside the main utility sector. And because governance is currently focused on the main utility sector, we thought that's where we find lots of challenges and barriers. So we looked at lots of different case studies across utility sectors. What we really wanted to look at is somewhere where the infrastructure is being integrated at the end user. But we really struggled to do that, so that's definitely what we're going to have to do, is look at our sort of theoretical understanding and try and look and see how those things might come about, because we don't have any examples. But we really wanted to look at different scales of things happening and different places where these things came from, because we really thought there's much more role for different actors in this transition. And what we found is a whole series of barriers to these things coming about, and in particular barriers to these things happening on a wider scale. And what we're doing is we've sort of got parallel streams now. We're taking those barriers and the things that made things happen or stop things happening, and we're trying to translate that back into the day-to-day policy and how that needs to change. So this is our sort of parallel track to that. So that's trying to feed back into what things need to be done differently now. This other strand, we started to identify some sort of characteristics of success, so things that seem to make these things work well. And we started to try and characterise these. And what we find is that these things are happening outside the utility system. So it's not just utility companies, it's happening by lots of different people and lots of different drivers. And what's happening is that those different actors are actually coming together. These things aren't often started by just one person working in isolation. They're people coming together and making these things happen. And the important thing is that those people come together and their sort of interests get aligned, but also the benefits of the case study go back. and are distributed to sort of meet the interests of people that are taking part. So they're quite integrated, and there's lots of sort of interactions and different interactions that need to be managed within this sort of this partnership of people. And also, both the actors and the relationships between the actors change over time, so they're not static, and that is good because it helps the case study adapt, or the example adapt as it goes on through the development. And all of those factors, the fact there's lots of people there, they've got sort of interests, we need to find a way of distributing benefits that match people's interests of being in there, and this dynamic relationship means that there needs to be some way of managing those relationships so that people come in knowing what they're coming in for and get what they need out of it. We were able to move forward. And interestingly, we found that they didn't just deal with one part of the system, so they didn't deal with supply or transmission or energy use. They actually were sort of meddling with all different parts of the system, which was one of the most issues of success. So then what we did is we looked at, well, these things are happening at a very small scale, in isolation, parallel to the mainstream system. How likely is the mainstream system to support wider rollout of these things? And the fairly obvious answer was not at all. And so we tried to find some way of sort of describing why it wasn't helping based on the sort of barriers we're finding. And the first thing we looked at was that the sort of governance of these schemes happened in a very top-down way. It was very sort of led by regulation of the utility system, and it was very sort of narrowly focused on that system, and didn't really allow for this diversity in the group of actors coming together. And also, because that governance was coming from lots of different places, from Europe, national, devolved administration, or obviously have to go into that bit in there, and local authorities, it was very fractured. Lots of different messages coming from lots of different places, and actually causing lots of challenges. And also, the expectation was that these businesses and end users were very separate. They didn't really interact. They dealt with they were regulated separately, and also they interacted with the technology system very separately. This was the conception of policy. So when these people wanted to come together and deal with multiple parts of this system, it was very, very difficult to do that. Lots of barriers to come over. So what we wanted to do was try and draw from other theories of governance and change, try and understand what kind of governance system the characteristics we were finding, what kind of governance system would actually encourage them and help accelerate transition to this more sort of useful way of doing things that we saw. So we went and looked through various theories and tried to find things that would help us create a sort of a way of analysing the system and the existing system of governance. So we started with multi-level governance because we had this very fractured top-down governance system, and this just gave us a way of looking at how that could become more sort of integrative and inclusive of lots of different actors. And it showed us the importance of really developing a very common framing, which was, aligning the interests of the different partners and engaging multiple actors, not just sort of talking to them, but actually engaging in the process and processes that have changed. And also the need to allow things to happen at a different scale, not just assuming it's going to be a utility-led, centralised solution. But what we found was this is very based on the sort of actor level of involvement, and really didn't deal with the interaction of actors and technologies. And also that it didn't give us much to work with on the sort of how do we get the rules right for letting these sort of groups of actors work together. So naturally we came to and this co-evolutionary framework, which does that have time? So I've got 5 minutes. Okay. So this tells us a lot more about how the social systems can evolve in parallel with technology systems. And there's a lot that we can learn from this, but there's 2 key things that we really drew from this, and this is a tiny part of Tim's big contribution. But what its co-evolutionary theory says is that these different systems co-evolving, and they can form these joint structures, which we took to be sort of analogous with our sort of partnerships, and that they can be more or less stable depending on external influence and the sort of internal dynamics. And so we took this to be very interesting that, so there's external influences in governance and internal influences sort of in governance there as well. And also, these joint structures with lots of different actors gave us more potential to have a more of an integrated interaction with technology. So it gave us a much better understanding of co-evolving and mutual influences. But what again, there wasn't much to go on in terms of the internal rules to try and increase that internal stability. So we then went and had a look at natural resource management, where the most work has been done on developing internal rules. And the reason we looked here is because a lot of infrastructure systems have some very they can be looked at in terms of common goods and public goods. So they're non-excludable. When you take me to the sort of like core, they show a lot of similarities with natural common resources and public goods. So we looked at the work that Eleanor Ostrom had done on looking at institutional dynamics and how institutions evolve for sort of self-organisation and management of natural resources. And we looked at her design principles for that and realised a lot of them were quite strongly applicable to infrastructure, and that they could be adapted in some sense to apply for sort of rules to understand how we could strengthen this governance of these joint structures to have different ways of managing infrastructure. Now the limitation now is there's not really been any application to infrastructure yet, so this is something we'd really like to take forward. But what we did is we used those to try and describe what we thought a more useful system would be that would help us govern these transitions that we were looking at. And we've developed this framework. We're very central to the framework of these joint structures where we've got businesses and end users working within some sort of internal ways of working. And those internal ways of working help align the motivations of these businesses and end users and other parties sometimes to really sort of like strengthen the partnerships. And we've got a much more integrated approach to governance, which is adapted to the different forms of these joint structures and helps to support them coming about and actually enable them to act in their different ways, and actually allows a more systemic approach to technology change with the sort of interaction with different parts of the technology system. And the point of doing this was to help understand sort of what needed to be there, so we can now go back and look at cases and look at what isn't there, and so where the existing governance system needs to change to allow these more sort of useful processes to happen. So we're halfway through a 3-year project, and we've really just been doing the case study work to try and develop this understanding, and now what we'd like to do is go back and refine and do some additional work. We'd really like, because the joint structure in all the cases seemed to be so central to its success, we want to really go back and understand that, and particularly to understand the applicability of these design rules to these systems and work out whether we can find out more about what the internal institution systems might look like for infrastructure systems. We'd really like to start saying, well, I said we can go back and look at other systems and look at what might need to change, but it would be good to do some more detailed modelling to look at what the consequences of alternative governance systems are and actually see how these proposed changes might play out. And as I said, we've not really had a chance to look at the integration of infrastructure systems. The case studies have all been quite discrete, so we'd like to go back and look at how this might sort of apply to the integration and identify how we might sort of make more of the opportunities here. So that's quite a list of sort of talk through that project. But we do have, it's on our project website if anyone wants to find out